Big data is of huge importance to the issue of monitoring internal displacement, and I'll tell you why. On this issue, there are massive data gaps. And what we're trying to do is paint kind of a longitudinal picture, a comprehensive, multidimensional, and longitudinal picture of different series or events of displacement. But in many contexts, in most contexts as a matter of fact, there are gaps in the data. The data stops being collected after a few days, maybe it's a few weeks, but certainly before the sort of number of displaced people goes back to zero. And that only tells us about the number of people displaced. It doesn't tell us anything about the conditions in which they are displaced. So we really need to draw on a lot of different kinds of data and analyze it to both validate the numbers, but then also to understand the characteristics of people who are displaced. And that means drawing upon all different kinds of data that people might not ordinarily think of when they think of displacement. So Facebook data is important, potentially Twitter data is important, even people's ability to, where they're accessing, where they're using their mobile phones, where they're accessing cash, if they're accessing cash electronically. These are all things that we think about, and the kinds of data that we try to use in our own analysis of this issue so that it can be both prevented when possible and responded to by governments and other actors like humanitarian actors or development actors when displacement does occur. At the IDMC, at Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, the biggest challenge we face with accessing and interpreting big data sets is actually just making the proper inferences from it. Do we really understand what this data represents? Because as with any model, it's garbage in, garbage out. So with big data, it could be big garbage in, big garbage out. So it's really on us to make sure that we're interpreting this information correctly before we make any projections based on it or estimates based on it. But at the same time, the potential that it represents to us is such that there's no getting around it, and it's something that we continue to work on really rigorously so that we can be as confident in our findings and as transparent in our findings as possible. But it's the new water that we're swimming in, and we just need to adapt to it and get comfortable with it, basically.